Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Way is in Training. This is a podcast exploring how warriors should train and fight, as well as how they should live. We will talk about technique, but we'll also dive deep into fitness, mindset, and strategy. We will explore leadership and philosophy as well. So whether you are a young soldier, a veteran police officer, a responsible armed citizen, or simply someone looking for an authentic life, let's examine how the lessons of combat and preparation for it can help us fulfill our potential. Let's explore the way together and learn how the discipline of training can show us our true selves amidst the chaos of life.
All right, everybody, welcome back. In this episode, I've got my friend Cliff Byerly from Hill Country Combatives, wealth of knowledge, retired LAPD, BJJ black belt, catch wrestling aficionado extraordinaire, and a bunch of other things relevant to this space. So just real quick, I know you've been on before, but real quick, let's give everybody a rundown on you. Just give them your background if you can.
Yeah, sure, Matt. Cliff Byerly, like you said, owner now of Hill Country Combatives, law enforcement career at LAPD. Prior to that, 12 years active duty in the Marine Corps with the 1st Reconnaissance Battalion, and then spent 11 years in the reserves with 4th Force Reconnaissance, 2nd degree black belt in San Antonio under Rodrigo Pinheiro, catch wrestling for 20 plus years as well with Billy Robinson and Eric Paulson and those guys out in California. But yeah, out here and retired to Kerrville now, so out here in nowhere land.
Yeah, I know we talked when the floods happened, but how bad did you get hit?
We didn't. We're 17 miles from town, so we took high ground, for fields of fire versus a river view. So that's kind of how I picked out here. So, I picked defendable property, not, not vacation property. So, but yeah, it was bad. I mean, I took search and rescue crews out for a couple weeks, and I mean, the damage is unbelievable if you didn't see it. I mean, chunks of motorhomes 25, 30 feet up in trees, and I mean, just the devastation was almost like a tornado and a flood had a baby. I mean, it was just, I've seen floods and I've seen other natural disasters, but the level that this did to the area is just insane. So,
Well, and some of that, and I don't want this to monopolize our conversation, but I mean, a lot of the areas that got just destroyed, it's not the first time they've happened. It's happened, right? Yeah.
No.
So
I mean, that the whole area along the river is called like flash flood alley. So it's been happening for a while. So it's and it started raining on Tuesday of that week, and the warning signs went out like I said, Tuesday before it even happened. So like, I don't know, you got to do some prior proper planning. Like if you're gonna go, if camping is your thing, you might not choose the camp right next to the river when you're getting flash flood signs, like 4 days prior. But the crazy thing is the people way downriver, like in Marble Falls areas that got swept away when they had like 30 plus hours of notice. The flash flood didn't hit them till Saturday. They still there's some decisions will affect the outcome if you don't make the correct one. So, but yeah, it was insane.
yeah, and I'm not making light of the tragedy by any means, but like there's a certain amount of caution I think you need to have with natural disasters, because nature doesn't care.
Yeah.
Like it's indomitable.
Yeah. I mean, the whole topography around here, around the rivers changed. I mean, it's even changed some of the road routes around here. So, I mean, yeah, it's bad. And it's I had one guy in one of the search crews I took out either the Saturday or Sunday right after it happened. And like, I don't know what campground he was in, but first responders were beating on the doors, telling people to leave. And there was some people, because it was like 2 a.m, it was like, go away, I'm sleeping. Like, oh, okay. It's like, so it's like not everybody, took warning when they should, basically. So,
Well, and I think there's like kind of probably some complacency that
oh
that
yeah,
sets in, like people in Florida getting the hurricane warnings and not
yeah,
paying attention to them anymore because they've gotten them so many times.
yeah,
But it's rolling the dice every time, though.
yeah. But I mean, the interesting part though with the flood was I mean, nothing about the first responders, but you could just tell, like, they're not set up for stuff like this. It's just like, 3 different command centers instead of one command center. I mean, the communication was horrible. Like when I was taking out a search crew, I was asking the fire chief for a grid map, and he was like, basically looked at me like I was like, "What's a grid map? We'll just send you a pin drop." I'm like, "You can't do grid searches on an iPhone." It's like,
Yeah.
so like it just shows, like, nothing, they don't prepare for anything until after the effect. So
Well, and as much as I used to hate the big command and control full dress
yeah,
show exercises as a cop, you got to understand that they're, to a certain degree, they are necessary,
yeah,
not for the guys on the bottom, it's for the guys on the top,
yeah,
because they don't know how to run it if they've never practiced running it,
yeah, yeah. I just took for granted being on so many like big incidences in LA with, one centralized command post where, everything was right there at like one radio call away. And here they had, oh, if you need air support, it's over there by DPS. And it's just like, what do you mean? It's like you're not one station. Or like, oh no, it's like, and then I guess the sheriff's department got new radios where they couldn't talk to anybody but other deputies. So
Well, and this is not where I was thinking our conversation would go, but this actually brings up kind of a training related thing, right?
yeah,
Because like I remember on SWAT, we would do these full scale, full mission brief, everything, big exercises, right? And always at like a big venue, because they're always thinking terrorism. So it's always like
yeah,
Soldier Field or
hmm,
the Sears Tower. It's still the Sears Tower to me. I refuse to call it
yeah,
anything else. They can say it's whatever it is. No, it's the Sears Tower.
yeah,
And they were not very productive at our level,
yep,
right? Because you get like 3 reps and that's it the whole
yep,
day. You'd be there for like, 20 hours and get 3 reps. But they weren't really for us. They were for that. They
yeah,
were the coordination aspect of it, the command and control aspect of it, which does matter. As much as we like to turn our noses up at it as the guys with the boots on the ground, that
yeah.
stuff does matter. It really does.
Yep. But I mean, it is, and that's how lives are saved or lost too. Is that it starts at the top? It's like you gotta, like, I know Hunter 7 was trying to land helos up there and hunt, and all they had to do was get their tail numbers on the roster, and nobody knew how to get in touch with the people coordinating air, because there was like 3 different command posts instead of one. It's like being overseas and you got, instead of, can you imagine going out on mission and having multiple talks that you have to, go through? Like, what a cluster that would be. It'd be it's the same thing that happened here with multiple command posts.
Yeah.
So,
Well, all right. Back to the nuts and bolts of the street
yeah.
level training. So, here's a good place for us to start today, because it's been a while since I talked to you. I have found a BJJ dojo near my house, and I'm going as often as I can. Yeah, yeah.
That's very
He's actually retired Austin PD.
Very cool.
With their bomb squad. Yeah. So
Awesome.
it's not really a competition gym. It's more like a more defense oriented.
Nice.
But the guy's really knowledgeable, and I'm having a great time, because we've talked about like my background before. I've done a fair amount of like what I would say is more stand-up grappling.
Yeah.
More like traditional jiu-jitsu and jiu-jitsu and aikido. But I'm really digging the groundwork. I really am. It's a whole nother piece of the puzzle for sure.
Yeah, I look at, I go at least 3 or 4 days a week, but it's like I look at jiu-jitsu nowadays at 58 with my injuries. It's like my yoga. I don't really go to the gym to look at like submitting, blue belts or whatever, but for me, it's more about it's mobility training, because I hate stretching. It's like, I mean, I still try to do my mobility training as much as possible, but a lot of times that gets put on a back burner or something else. So jiu-jitsu is like my mobility training nowadays for my hips and everything else that's broken.
Well, that was kind of one of the reasons I did it, to be honest, because I realized that what had helped me stave off a lot of the mobility issues from my injuries in the past was going to the dojo.
Yeah.
You really don't have a choice. You know what I mean? You get pinned, you get thrown, you kind of have to go with it and relax.
Yeah.
And I wasn't getting that just by punching and kicking on the heavy bag at home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or like,
for sure.
Yeah. So that was one of the reasons I did it. And I kind of want to get your thoughts on this too, because I have this, like every other guy that is like doing BJJ and is not super experienced at that art in particular. I go down the YouTube and the BJJ fanatics.
Mm-hmm.
I go down those holes. Right? I spent hours watching YouTube, learning how to do the fucking bicep slicer from the omoplata from the half guard. Yeah, right. And so here's my thought on this, and it's kind of the same thought I have about, like, let's take the martial art I started out in. I started out in Shotokan karate when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And back then it was very different than it is now. Not in terms of the way the techniques are taught, but in terms of the way they're practiced, right? And the way they're emphasized. Because over the decades since then, the rule set for competition has encouraged very, how can I put this?
Well, it's gone from a very hard style to a softer style.
Yes. Yeah. It's become kind of more of a game than it was back then.
Yeah.
Not that there weren't weaknesses back then. There were, but there were also a lot of strengths too. Like I learned a lot about how to move my body and how to do footwork and how to set up things and timing and distancing and angles and all that. And you couldn't argue, but that, I mean, in application, you might want to make the techniques smaller, but for learning how to generate power, like Shotokan teaches you how to generate power. It really does.
Yep.
But then I was watching like some, international competition on YouTube the other day, and I couldn't even recognize the sparring compared to when I did it.
Yeah.
And I'm not knocking sports BJJ when I say this, but some of the things I see the guys do when I watch it, and don't get me wrong, there's some amazing athletes and I'm sure they can fight. That's not what I'm saying. Right.
Yeah.
But just some of the choices they make because of the rule set are for the rule set, not for the fight. Does that make
100%.
sense?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I tell people, be careful what you practice. You might get really good at the wrong thing. Because like a lot of this stuff you see, well, there's been videos out there of like, oh, look at this purple belt heel hook this drunk, and it's just like, well, the only reason he pulled that off is because the drunk didn't want to stomp his head into the curb. So a lot of this stuff is like what you see in sport-based grappling might not be the best decision in a self-defense situation. But like you said, it's all set up. It's for the rule set. It's just like, I make fun of people pulling guard, but it's and to me, it's like, it's the dumbest thing in the world is that habit. But because of the rules, it's like you might as well get it to the ground as fast as possible. You know what I mean? Because like at when you get to the olders, you only have 4 minutes. So it's like, why are you going to waste 3 minutes trying to get a takedown? So a lot of everything is built around, it's really gone away from jiu-jitsu. To me, has really gone away from like the self-defense type aspect to more of the competition stuff, where you see a lot of the flashy moves that somebody my age I'm not pulling off a lot of the new stuff, that's for sure. I'm still the just a pressure pass type person. I'm not doing any upside down stuff, that's for sure.
And like I said, I'm not knocking these guys as athletes. You know what I mean?
Oh, they're amazing.
They're phenomenal. And I'm not saying they can't fight. I just question some of the choices. Well, I don't question them because of the rule set, but it's not the choice. It's not the way I want to train, I guess is a better way of putting it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't train that way. Mine is my game from white belt to, black belt has pretty much been the same. It's very fundamental. It's heavy wrestling base, but I'm not doing any of that fancy stuff. And we got one kid at the gym who phenomenal, like very high level black belt, but now that he's got an MMA, he'll even tell you he had to change his whole grappling game because it didn't work for MMA. It's like once you can start getting, elbowed in the face, like a lot of the, flashy sports stuff goes out the window.
Well, it's the same thing that happened to the strikers because of MMA, right? Strikers had to change their game too because they had to contend with grappling. I mean, it goes both ways. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. There's no one range that is all superior, I don't think.
Yeah.
There's ranges you're more comfortable with as a fighter, and the more you can play to your strengths, the better off you are. But it's not one size fits all.
Yeah. Well, it's like we got this female at the gym, very high level MMA fighter. I mean, she just won her last fight, I think, in Austin last week. But she went out to California for a boxing, and talking to her, like going from MMA to boxing, she's like, the boxing just felt like a sparring round to her. Like MMA is like a complete like chess match. And she's like, and that was like, that was her thing. Cause I was asking her if she's going to do more boxing. And she was like, no, boxing is boring. It's high level stuff, but to her, it's not the true chess match, you know what I mean? Where you have to be aware of, multiple ranges and take advantage of different opportunities that's presented to you by an opponent. So she said, like the whole, I don't know how many rounds the boxing thing was, but she's like, it just felt like a sparring, getting ready for a, MMA fight.
So here's something. I want to know what you think about this, because you just kind of made me think of something. So take like our previous professions, right? Military and law enforcement are like self-defense, Then you're adding in another layer of that chess match on top of MMA. Then you're adding in multiple opponents, you're adding in weapons, you're adding in environment, you're adding in all these other legal considerations, all these other things that makes it even more complex and changes things even more still. And I'm not saying that the self-defense guys who say that their stuff would work for real, but they don't pressure test it, are the right. That's not what I mean. I'm not agreeing with them. I think all the pressure testing is vital, whether you're talking about striking or grappling or weapons, right? It's all vital. But you still got to realize that it's all sparring.
Yep.
It's all just sparring. It's all just training. None of it's the real thing.
Yeah, because you're both agreeing not to injure each other. Otherwise, you lose a training partner.
Yep.
It's just like we can do force on force with real weapons, but you're only going to get one rep. That's why you got sim guns and stuff. It's all it. It's like you try to make it as real as possible, but just the risk isn't there, I should say.
Well, and even I think psychologically, even because you've seen force on force, I'm sure, or I have, where it devolves into a paintball match where nobody cares about getting 100%. Shot.
Yeah.
And that's because the psychological pressure stops being there after a while.
Yeah.
Once you realize that you're not really getting shot, then you start doing things you'd never do if the bullets were real.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like, and that's the hard thing about doing like force on force training is to get people out of the mindset of it's a game. Like, I know you try to get them to like not game stuff and be a good role player. That's the most difficult part of it. It's because they're all trying to win instead of learn from that scenario.
Oh, and that brings up another thing I like too, because we talk about it all being sparring, right? Do you know who Bryce Frank is?
Yeah.
Bryce is a good dude.
Yeah, really good dude. I mean, great fighter too.
Oh, phenomenal fighter. Wasn't he the only heavyweight kickboxer to get a knockdown with a cartwheel kick?
I think so.
I
Yeah.
think he was. Yeah. So Bryce is a really good dude. Bryce is a friend of mine. And we had a conversation on the podcast, actually, where Bryce said he never cared about winning a single round of sparring
Yeah.
because it was all about learning. And if you
Yep.
care too much about winning, you're no longer learning because
Yeah.
you're not gonna try things. You're not gonna experiment. You're only gonna do your strengths, right?
Yep. And I tell people at all my classes, don't do what I teach, do what you learn. Because we all have different injuries, body types, whatever. It's like, the concepts have to be applied, but they may have to be applied differently for you. So do what you learn, not what I teach.
Well, that's like Musashi's Book of Five Rings, right? Pretty much every little section ends with you must experiment with this on your own. Like you've got to figure out the way you make it work. Because the way, well, like take shooting, take my wife, significantly smaller of stature than me, really, really good shooter. The way she holds a gun is not the way I hold a gun because I'm the missing link. Look at these hands.
Yeah.
The thumbs don't oppose, right?
Yeah.
Like she can't grip a gun the same way I do. It wouldn't work.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's just like the vehicle extraction course that I teach. Like we had a couple of the last couple of weeks, but anyway, it's like we come back from lunch. I'd literally give the guys in the class like the first hour after lunch. I tell them you got 45 minutes to an hour, depending on the time. But I want you to go through everything we worked on this morning and see where it fails and then come up with a solution. And then after, once they play around with this stuff and they start like putting the material from isolation to application, then we can start getting into like more force on force and weapons-based stuff inside of the vehicle. But it's like inertis, and I think that really helps them out a lot because, now they can start playing around, and now when something fails, they already have a solution for it because they've seen it in training. Instead of like escalating to a level of force that's not necessary, it's like, oh, I knew this was gonna. It's just like when people roll with a really good jiu-jitsu black belt, and they're like, oh man, he's like 6 moves ahead. No, he just knows what your options are. You know what I mean? It's not 6 moves ahead. He just knows you can only do A, B, or C because you have 2 arms, 2 legs. So, and I think that's a part of training, that a lot of training that's missed, and you're not given the opportunity to play with the material. It's just, let's go forward now.
Well, and so here's another thought on that too, right? Finding the failure points. Like go back to BJJ. I think the greatest learning tool you have is the tap.
Yep, for sure.
It's that kind of goes back to what Bryce said, or like the things you said in this conversation here. It's not about winning that round. It's not about winning that roll. It's not about winning that sparring round. It's not about winning necessarily that scenario. It's about learning how to win the one that counts.
Yep.
And if you don't figure out the breaking point in training, how are you going to know how to get past it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like any kind of competition, right? People talk about like, they put so much stress on themselves. Like even these local gun matches, you see guys like, putting a lot of pressure. It's like, dude, there's no prizes here at the local match. Like, you know what I mean? Just go out and like have something that you want to focus on for that particular match and just run it. It's like, who cares?
It's like an open mat at the gym. Like you're just, go experiment, go play with something, go work on something.
It's like this past Sunday or Saturday, I shot a match, and it's like, I don't really care about the hits, but I'm going to try to move, like not stop and shoot. I'm just going to try to move through the whole stage, and it worked out. You know what I mean? It's like, I still want to get faster, but it's like, I wasn't like going, like stopping at each target, like in the past, so it's like, oh, like just go work, figure out what works for you and what doesn't work. So
what, here's a good one. And it kind of segues into the things we've been talking about. So what advice would you give somebody, the newer trainee, for any of this? For striking, for grappling, for catch wrestling, for law enforcement? Like, what's the single piece of advice you think you could give the new guy, or
Like,
the new guy at your old battalion? Any of those.
yeah, it's just like, well, train, obviously training, but it's like I tell people, have a goal. Pick one thing. So like if you go twice a week to whatever training it is, pick, one thing each day that you suck at. Hey, can we start? I need to work on my mount escapes. I need to work on my back escapes. If you do that, you know, twice a week, 8 things a month, you're fixing 96 things a year. But so many people, I'll ask at jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai class, like, hey, what are you working on today? Oh, I just want to roll. And I tell them, like, okay, you'll always suck because you're not fixing anything. You're just going to focus on what you're good at. So figure out what you suck at and work on that, which is uncomfortable, but still, that's how you.
That goes back to trying to win the sparring round, right?
Yeah.
It's the same basic thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not at this point in BJJ yet by a long shot, right? But in some of the other stuff I trained in, I used to intentionally, if I was working with somebody lower skilled, see, right now I'm not at that point because I'm the lowest skilled guy. Everybody's at a higher skill level than me one of these days. But in the other stuff, right, I would intentionally, working with somebody more junior, I would put myself in a really bad place on purpose.
Yeah.
Just so I could figure out how to get out of it, how to escape it, how to fix it, how to make it work. Because what's the point of doing something that I know I'm good at against somebody who's less skilled or less experienced? What am I learning? What are they learning? Neither one of us is learning anything.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like when I roll with the lower belt, I always ask them, like, hey, what do you want to work on? Some of them are like, oh, they get all excited, like, oh, can we just start my half guard? Because they're so used to this getting smashed by, higher belts. But it's like, if I'm not, to me as a black belt, it's like, if I'm not making the lower belts better, then I'm not doing my job as a black belt. If I'm just going in there and smashing people, I mean, there's a few guys in there, military guys that don't know how to roll. So I just smash them all day because, they haven't figured out how to train yet. But it's like, for the most part, it's like, I just go in there, like, one, it's like I said earlier, it's my mobility training. So, I'd rather go in there and make you better than trying to like see how many times I can submit, a blue belt.
So segue for a bit, if you don't mind, my friend. Tell me about catch wrestling, because I am fascinated by this.
Yeah, catch wrestling is like, that's like, they say jiu-jitsu is like the gentle art of grappling. Catch wrestling is basically like the brutal art of, and really a lot of it is, a lot of the submissions in catch wrestling isn't allowed in a jiu-jitsu rule set. But like with catch wrestling, there's actually like pins as well as submissions. So, and of course, a lot of the stuff you see from catch wrestling has now been crossed over to no-gi jiu-jitsu.
Yep.
So, but like catch wrestling, there's a lot of things like, and it's just grappling is grappling, but it's just a totally different rule set. But I think the rule set of catch wrestling with like the neck cranks and, a lot of the other crank type submissions apply to law enforcement way better than a BJJ rule set. So, but
so is there like more of an emphasis on like making the joint uncomfortable then, rather than chokes and locks, or?
Oh, there's chokes and locks, but there's a lot of like, they call it rippets, rubs inducing pain. So it's
like a bicep slicer kind of.
Basically, but it's like, it's like when you're trying to set up like Kimura from side control, it's like, and they're holding their hands tight and you can't like separate the arms from their shoulder lock. Literally, like in catch wrestling, they'll take the elbow and just drop it into your armpit and basically sprawl on that. It's like if in catch wrestling, they don't have a guard because you're on your back, you're pinning yourself. So they don't play the guard game. So a lot of times, like if I end up in somebody's guard, I'll just put my elbow on their diaphragm and basically sprawl on it. when they'll open their legs because they can't breathe. It's just stuff like that. But there's a lot of like hip locks that aren't allowed. And like I said, the jiu-jitsu rule set, but the hip locks works extremely well if you cross over to law enforcement, because that's how you make people go from their back to their stomach, because you're starting to separate their knee and their hip. So
makes sense. So I got a funny story to tell you. It's a striking story, so it's Shotokan karate story, but it's kind of the striking equivalent of you putting your elbow on their sternum. Yeah. And that's why it made me laugh so hard, because I remembered what a jerk I used to be when I was a kid. So if I had somebody who was really good on the defense, who could really cover up well, I would punch them in the elbow as hard as I could.
Yeah.
And every time I got the same reaction, they'd look at me like, "What's wrong with you?" Because they knew it had to hurt me as much as it hurt them, and I was just too young to care. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't do it now. Well, I wouldn't do it to somebody I respected now. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like I really like that. Like I'm going to steal that. I'm doing that.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like this nerve cluster in the shoulder, like a rifle stock goes.
Yeah.
Just dropping an elbow into that from like side control, it makes people move in directions that you really want, So, but I mean, a lot of this stuff, like I said, it's just a different rule set. And, a lot of the guys I roll with, they know that I'm that guy, but some guys, they'll cry about it. It's like, whatever,
Oh man, I got to pick your brains for this stuff, because it sounds great. Great in the way that things that really suck on the receiving end are great.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's like dropping your shin on their Achilles nerve. Like, it's a great way to set up toe holes. It's kind of frown in jiu-jitsu, but it's a great way to set up stuff. But catch wrestling is just kind of like the asshole art of grappling. But I guess, I truly believe it crosses over. There's, like I tell people, I can't think of a single thing that I've learned like from jiu-jitsu that I've used in law enforcement. Everything's been wrestling, and that's where like all your, wrestling takedowns and like, pins and rides from catch wrestling is way more applicable than, they can call it jiu-jitsu, but it's from wrestling. If you look at the old school police jiu-jitsu book from, 1930, whatever it was, it's all wrestling and Aikido, judo stuff. There's nothing jiu-jitsu about that, So, but I mean, everybody steals other people's arts over time. So
I saw something on the internet and I researched it. So I do think it is true, or at least as true as anybody can prove, right? It may not be totally provable, but supposedly Abraham Lincoln had an undefeated 200-0 record as a catch wrestler.
Yeah, I heard something like that too. Yeah, there's like I say, you never know if it's true, but I've read numerous places where he was he'd go to like wrestling shows and compete. So, I mean, it's said enough times where it makes it believable.
There's got to be some layer of truth to it, whether his record is true or not. There's got to be something going on there.
Yeah, for sure.
And I guess his signature move, was a choke slam.
Oh wow, that's pretty cool, especially thinking how tall he was.
Yeah, wasn't he like 6'6" or something? Some insane height.
Yeah. So had to be pretty brutal.
And I guess like the reason that comes to mind though is, I mean, catch wrestling is pretty much an American art. I mean, it derived from other sources, I'm sure, but wasn't it developed here?
No, I think actually it came from like Wigan, I think how you pronounce it, over in England. Is where like originally it started from. Like, I know Billy Robinson, like he talks about in his book, everything coming from like the Wigan area. I think that's how you pronounce it, from over in the UK.
So what are some good resources then? What should I read up on about catch wrestling so I can incorporate some of this painful stuff?
Billy Robinson has a book out there. He's really good. God, Eric Paulson, man, if you just follow him on social media, he's always posting stuff. Like he's one of the main guys like under Billy Robinson. You got Carl Gotch and guys like that. I think Carl is from up in Iowa area, but he's a legendary guy with Billy Robinson and those guys. But yeah, there's a lot of books out there on catch wrestling and stuff like that. Um, got John Pascal out of Arizona. He's a very high level catch wrestler. He's like the one I train under when he comes to Texas. So
I've got an old, I think it's Paladin Press book on catch wrestling. I think I sent you a picture of it one time. Yeah. I got to dig that out and go through it again.
Yeah. Next time, John was just out in, Austin area, Pflugerville. He comes to Pflugerville a couple times a year. Yeah. Next time John comes out for a catch wrestling seminar, I'll let you know if you're not busy teaching.
Yeah, please do. I'd love to go to it. I'm really enjoying actively training in a dojo again. Like I'm enjoying being under somebody else's instruction again. It's nice, especially in an art that I'm pretty inexperienced at. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just so healthy for like brain longevity too. Learning new stuff. It's like I think a lot of the whole Alzheimer's and stuff is just big. I mean, I'm probably wrong. I'm not I'm a Tylenol baby, but it's like I think a lot of the brain stuff just comes because you're not using it like you used to.
And I mean, I'm definitely like. I'm in no risk of being on the Huberman podcast anytime soon, right? Like I'm not a neuroscientist or any kind of scientist by any means, but it's not that hard a conclusion to draw because you see it. Yeah. Like I see people that are really intelligent people, and it's not that they're getting dumber, it's that they're getting more rigid. They're no longer taking in new information, no longer making new conclusions. Everything is data they've already recycled in their brain 1,000 times. And that's got to have an effect. I mean, the brain, you have to work the brain like a muscle, I'm sure.
Yeah.
To stay healthy.
It's just like, they tell older people to do crossword puzzles, right? They keep your brain active, and to me, jiu-jitsu is like my crossword puzzle is just, you're just trying to figure out the human aspect of it instead of with pencil and paper. But, the pistol matches are the same way.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, this is the first year where, knock on wood, I haven't like forgot to shoot a target. It's like, now I'm starting to figure out like the stage math in, I'm coming up my own plans basically this year, which is, but it's like, it's really cool because it's like, it makes you use your brain and you're processing information constantly.
You're solving problems, and you're solving problems at real speed under external stress and pressure. And that's got to be good for your brain. It's got to be.
It has to be. And that's the way I see it. It's like, I'm not really out there to compete with anybody, but it's just like I said, the jiu-jitsu is like the longevity thing with mobility and stuff. It's like anything that makes you use your brain and think. And, I think it's got to be good for you, At least I think so.
No, I agree with you. We'll check back in 20 years and see if either one of us has Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's 10 for me, 20 for you.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of brain trauma in these 58 years of my brain. So,
yeah, you're not alone there.
Yeah.
And this would apply to you too. This would definitely apply to you too. So, that there's this thing called the operator syndrome, right?
Yeah.
Have you read about that?
Oh yeah. I have like a whole book on it.
Yeah. And it's a real thing, man. The older I get, the more my friends I watch get certain ailments. Yep. It's a very real thing. I am going to do my best to stave that off as long as I can, if not permanently.
Yeah, 100%. It's like I tell people too, it's just like, you can't wait to get active. Like if you plan on doing a 2-mile beach walk with the grandkids when you're 90, you got to be able to do a 5-mile beach walk now when you're 50. You
Yeah.
know, but so many people they just keep putting stuff off, and it's just like, man, tomorrow is no guarantee. You know, it's like you got to do it now.
Well, and the people that really impress me are the people that take up a complex skill late in life.
Yeah,
And that doesn't mean they didn't take up other complex skills when they were younger. I'm sure they probably did. You see these stories about people that started, you know, whatever it is, you know, it could be yoga, could be sprinting, could be
yeah,
jiu-jitsu, but they started in their 60s and then by their
yeah,
80s they're masters of it. Like
yeah,
that's somebody who's staying young. You know what I mean?
yeah. Yeah, I just saw that video on Facebook of that 80-year-old lady that just finished the Ironman in Hawaii.
Oh
Like,
yeah. That was
how,
really impressive.
oh my God, that was like legit. You know what I mean? It's like, and you got 20-year-olds like, oh, they couldn't like run around the block. You know, it's like it's
Well,
it's crazy.
and if I remember right, didn't she start like in her 60s?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think she started
Yeah.
like really late in life. Yeah, that's crazy. So good on her.
All right. So did you who started you out on the catch wrestling thing? Did you start under Eric Paulson or was it somebody else?
No, actually, it was Billy Robinson. Well, no, I take that back. I did privates with Eric Paulson when I was with the PD, and then he led me to his basically what he called his coach, Billy Robinson. And then luckily, like one of Billy's main assistant instructors, Sam Crescent, he lived in San Diego. So I was able to drive, you know, the few weekends I had off, you know, I drove down and I was training with Sam down in La Jolla and San Diego area. But yeah, I did a lot of privates and seminars with Eric Paulson, like, but he was the main guy. And he's just, I try to get out to California every couple years. He has a big 3-day, basically like a combatives camp. Every April time frame. I try to get out there every other year or so, but because he brings in some really like high level dudes to coach there. But yeah, I mean he's just like a legit encyclopedia of grappling. I mean,
That's cool.
you know, it's just like if you listen to Hickson's autobiography, he even says he went to Eric Paulson to learn leg locks. So I mean that's pretty cool. But it's amazing to me. Like I talk to these younger jiu-jitsu guys, and I'll mention Eric Paulson, and it's interesting to me is like how many younger, even black belts don't have a clue who Eric Paulson is. You know,
You
because he
know,
doesn't have the Gracie name or whatever it is. You know, it's just interesting how many people don't. You know, they're into a martial arts, but they don't study the lineage or history of the martial art.
well, going back to the shooting side of things, I mean, obviously you know who Jeff Cooper was, I'm
Oh
sure.
yeah.
I had a class the other day where I think 2 people knew who Jeff Cooper was out of the whole class.
Wow. That's
And
insane.
it's kind of the same thing. And it's not really their fault. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the information they're being given. But it shows that there's a failure somewhere of passing that information along.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the martial arts side of the house does a better job of it than the shooting and like more combative side of the house does.
Yeah.
But there's a failure on both sides.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I think that, I think it's valuable to know where we've been to make sure we get to where we're going. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
saying we don't need innovation. Of course, we need innovation and improvement and advancement and all of that. But we got to realize where we came from too. And sometimes it's important to not learn the same lessons over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the big thing. Like when I teach anything, it's like I always try, you know, to remember to give credit to whoever I learned it from, you know, and that way people can like, oh, okay, I can look up whoever it is, you know what I mean? It's like, but to me, a lot of the problem comes from like social media too, because now what you see is like in the training realm, because of social media, it's a lot of hero worship.
Oh yeah. And it's,
You know what I mean? And it's just like, and then if you're one of those guys, like you're never gonna know what's possible because you just take your hero's word for it, you know.
and all too often, I think it's hero worship for the wrong reasons too.
Oh yeah, 100%.
You know, it's not hero worship for the person who's dignified and has the right motivations and is advancing other people. It's hero worship of the person who's advancing himself at other people's cost.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, the majority of social media, the person, they rather be somebody than help somebody.
John Boyd. Have you read John Boyd?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. You know about his speech at the Air Force Academy, right?
Yep. 100%.
That speech was one of the single biggest influences on my goals professionally as a supervisor.
Yeah.
Do you want to be somebody, or do you want to do something?
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. For those of you who are listening who aren't familiar with it. So first off, John Boyd coined the OODA loop, which has become such a buzzword that people don't really understand what it means anymore, I think. But it is the model for how our brain acts in conflict. He had a speech at the Air Force Academy where he said you have a choice as an officer. You can either be someone, try to become a general and do all these things to suit yourself, or you can try to make the organization, the institution you're part of, better for you having been there. And that choice makes a difference in how your career will go, but it also makes a difference in how the organization is after you leave.
Yep. And that's why I left as an FTO and never promoted. I didn't play the game.
I was actually going to be in the next class of lieutenants when I retired.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, the job had changed and I didn't want to become as political as I would have had to have been to take that promotion.
Oh yeah. I'm sure Chicago isn't any better than LA.
If anything, I think it might be worse, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, at least you guys still have the SIS.
Yeah. Yeah. We still do vehicle pursuits and foot pursuits. And all those things. Yeah.
After I retired, I heard that they wanted supervisors to approve foot pursuits.
Yeah. How crazy is that?
That's insane.
Yeah.
When I first got hired, the pursuit policy was you better catch them.
Yeah. Well, it's like, to me, it's like, LA is still the vehicle pursuit capital. You know what I mean? And it's funny because everybody hears, talks about Los Angeles, like how, liberal Democrat it is. But like the guys in South LA, they're still out doing good police work.
I'm sure.
It's one of those areas you don't have a choice. Stuff happens right in front of you.
Well, it's the same in Chicago. Like in the rough neighborhoods in Chicago, you don't have a choice but to be the police because they're not going to. There's nowhere to hide. It's going to happen.
Yeah. 100%. So
you can't stay in the hole for 8 hours every shift.
No, you can't hide. Well, we had I think it was either a retirement or a funeral. They had people come in to Southeast Division to fill in the patrol gaps, and 2 cops so they could just sit under a tree and sit for 12 hours, and they actually ended up having a drive-by done on them. So yeah, that was a interesting day. So, but yeah, I mean that's just South LA. It's like stuff finds you if you don't look for it.
I honestly feel kind of bad for, and I want to make sure I phrase this right, because I not only feel bad for the new police officers, the young ones, because they're really caught in a hard place.
Yeah,
they can't afford to make a mistake, and they're going to be given situations where nobody's taught them what to do because there's nobody left to teach them. All the experienced people have left, right?
Yeah.
I feel sorry for them, and I feel sorry for the good people that they're supposed to be there for, because they're going to get less police service because the cops don't know what to do because there's such a brain drain and lack of trust from the brass and the politicians. It's just, I don't know how long it's going to take to turn this around. Like in a perfect storm with politicians that back the police, adequate funding, adequate hiring, proper selection procedures, and hiring procedures, proper training. You put all that perfect storm in place, you're still looking at a whole generation of cops before things are fixed, maybe more.
Yeah, probably more. And let's look at the what's going on in Austin, like that article. It's like they want more, de-escalation training. It's like,
yeah, I love how that, talking about the article that we sent back and forth on social media, right? Yeah, I love how that article said, well, there's a higher rate of use of force incidents because the reporting procedures are so stringent in Austin compared to other agencies, but we still want more de-escalation. Like you just answered the question in your own article.
Yeah.
You're
You know,
so strict on them that you're making them report things they shouldn't have to report, but you still want them to report less.
yeah. I mean, and the thing too is these departments like Austin, they look at de-escalation as if it's a tactic and not a desired result.
I like
It's
that.
you know what I mean? It's the result we all want, but it's not a tactic. It's like,
Well, and good street cops have been doing de-escalation since policing was invented, since Robert Peel.
yeah, because in
But
the 90s, it was verbal judo instead of de-escalation. It's the same thing.
yeah, well, but not even just that. Like every good cop knows you're always better off talking people into handcuffs.
Oh yeah,
Like
for
like you're
sure.
always better off, no matter how good a fighter you are, no matter if you can talk them into the cuffs, it's a better day.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Always.
Yep. And it's been that way forever. But now, now that's the cool buzzword is de-escalation. You know.
Well, I think this is part of a bigger issue, I think. And it's a certain element of society who didn't trust the police and didn't like the way violence looks, because violence never looks good. Violence always looks ugly,
Yeah.
right? Violence is ugly. It's violence. They thought that if they took away law enforcement discretion, they could lower the violence.
Yeah.
It didn't work. It had the opposite effect, because when we had discretion, we could send people on their way for minor things.
Yeah.
And now you're so micromanaged, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And now that you wind up getting in situations you could have talked your way out of 30 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, because now there is no like simple, step on the crack pipe and see you later.
No, you can't. Yeah, you can't throw the baggie down the sewer anymore. Not
Yeah.
that it ever happened. I'm not saying it
Yeah.
happened, but if it had happened, you can't do it anymore.
Yeah, you can't, but it's like, these people, it's like I said, it's like at de-escalation, like talking to people in the cuffs, that's always the goal. But, but now they act like it's a tactic. You're going to go out there and de-escalate people. It's like de-escalation is a kind word all the way up to kinetic energy. It's like, it doesn't, it's the bad guy has a say in the matter.
And you know who the micromanaging really hurts? It's the young kids that aren't hardened criminals yet, that 30 years ago would have gotten a talking to and maybe a crack and might have turned out to be good citizens. And now they have a record because you can't let it go anymore. You don't have that discretion anymore.
Yeah, there's like they took the discretion. They took the adult decision making away from the line cop is what they did.
Yeah, and I don't know how to fix that either.
Yeah, I don't think there's ever going to be a fix, but it's like it all comes. People don't quit law enforcement because of the job; they quit because of the leadership.
Yeah.
And the good thing I think too is like Fort Worth is really turning around. They brought in I forget his name, but they just had like a record number of applications because of the new police chief in Fort Worth.
Oh, nice. I wasn't aware of that.
So that's good to see. They had like 2,300 people apply for the next academy class up in Fort Worth.
God, you remember the old days? Like I think there were 30 or 40,000 people that took the test for Chicago when I did.
Yeah,
like it was insane.
Like when I started in the mid 90s, LA, we were running, an academy class, if not an A and B class every month.
Yeah, we had an A and B class every month with 100 people in each one, and it was nonstop.
Yeah, LA was the same way. It was crazy. Now they got like 25 people in the class.
and that's the thing too, is they make it hard to attract the right people.
Yep.
And you need the right people. You do. And I'm sure you're the same way. I never cared what somebody's skin color was. I never cared what their gender was. I didn't care what whatever they did in their private time. I didn't care.
I don't care. I still
if they could do the job, that's all I cared. That's all I cared about. Yep. And that's the way it should be. But this idea that you have to be this exact match of the demographic makeup of the population you're policing,
it's never going to happen.
No. And nor should it, really. It should matter who does the job.
Yeah. I mean, because if you look at, like, it was funny because working in South LA, the majority of cops in South LA were either white male, white female, because the black cops, they get tired of, being called names by their own people, so they're like, okay, screw it, we're out of here. It's just like, so the demographics are never going to match, the neighborhood. It's impossible.
Well, and it shouldn't be the reason you choose. They want a level of personnel with a hiring process they won't tolerate.
Yeah.
A quality of personnel is what I mean. They want people to be at this very high level of aptitude and ability for a job that, and here's the thing about law enforcement, at least back in the day before the current political climate, I used to say that law enforcement was the easiest job to do poorly, but the hardest job in the world to do well.
Yeah.
Like back in the day, you could just skate by and answer your calls and be a pretty lousy cop and get by back in the day. But to be a good cop, you had to be good at so many different things and really good at them under stress. And it's probably one of the hardest jobs in the world to do well. Yeah. And that's before you factor in all the current political stuff, right?
Yeah.
So you can't hire the people capable of doing that with the current enticements because they just aren't there.
Yeah. I mean, because you got to be a good cop, you got to put in a lot of extra time. You got to subscribe to, I forget what it's called, but like all the case law updates, and that's, your knowledge on top of your hard skill development. It's like they're not hiring people that want to put in the extra work. They're going there to collect a paycheck, basically, is the ones they're hiring nowadays. A lot of it across the board.
To be a good job, you basically got to be good at the job. To be a good cop, you basically got to be the equivalent of a paralegal, a social worker, a solid martial artist, a decent shooter, right? You've got to be a good driver. You've got to be able to talk to people. Like you've got to be able to interview people and talk to people and get buy-in from people. All those different things. And you're not going to get that with subpar recruits. You're just not. Because it doesn't come from academy training. It comes from a desire to be a good cop.
Yeah. And I think talking to people is one of the hardest things for this generation because everything is on the phone. It's just texting and, social media. Like you don't see people just, picking up the phone and calling anybody anymore. It's like, I think communication is like, just from, hanging out with the kids at jiu-jitsu, like their level of communication skills is so lacking compared to 30 years ago.
Well, and if you can't talk to people, you're never going to solve any crimes. You're never going to have any sources. You're never going to know what happened. You're never going to be able to get somebody to confess. You're never going to need to talk them into handcuffs. Talk about de-escalation. You got to talk to people to de-escalate things. You got to be able to communicate. And it's fun to put hands on people. I do it as a hobby, but that doesn't mean it's the desired outcome, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. It's not good for career longevity, especially nowadays.
No, it's not really good for your joints or your uniform allowance either.
Yeah, no kidding. But especially now, I know out in LA, if you're a proactive cop, your personnel file ended up down at risk management. So it's like, then, it's like, okay, that's cool. But then, they're basically telling you, don't go out and do police work. I mean, there's no support, so, but it's like, so you learn to, you start talking to people more. That's for sure. But like the level of the ability to have a conversation nowadays just isn't there.
No. And going back to, we were talking about neuroplasticity. We were talking about it in terms of longevity earlier, but they've done like real studies where your brain is shaped by things like social media and AI and not really in a positive way.
Yeah.
And I see it myself. Like I used to be able to sit and read a book cover to cover. Like if I had a slow day, nothing was going on, a rest day or whatever, I could sit and devour a book in one sitting. I can't do that anymore. I have to read things in chunks because I'm so used to bite-sized information coming at me all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't think I think that skill needs to be preserved. I think we need to figure out a way as a society to not lose that ability to maintain focus and attention.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I took a job at a Toyota dealership to learn sales, like after I retired for my business. And it's interesting too, because like, you'd have young kids go into the sales manager office working a deal. And it's like my observations was like the generation now, they don't know how to listen. Like they want to hear just enough so they can respond. They don't listen to understand. So if you don't have the capability of listening to understand what the person is telling them, that's not going to play over well in law enforcement either.
No.
It's like, especially when it's a 20-year-old kid talking to a 40-year-old, career criminal who has way more life experience. You got some kid that just keeps putting, wanting to respond instead of listening to what's understanding, like at a domestic. That's just going to escalate the problem right there.
Oh yeah, they're going to wind up going off on you because they know you're not listening to them.
Yeah.
Even if they're lying to you, they want to feel like you're listening to them.
Yeah.
Even if they're lying to you and they know they're lying to you, they still want to feel like you're listening to them.
Yeah. So and that's the problem. It's like if you don't know how to listen and talk to people, then I hope you have a high developed hands-on skill, which most don't either.
Well, back to the lying thing, and then after this we got to wrap it up, brother, because we're already over an hour. But so it is amazing to me the skill criminals have at lying.
Oh yeah.
I don't think people realize this. Like, I don't think like your average law-abiding citizen understands just how proficient these people are at lying.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I mean career criminals. I'm not lumping everybody in poor neighborhoods into that category by any means. There are a lot of good people in poor neighborhoods. But I can't tell you how many times I had somebody in the hood of the car and I'm talking to them and they're spinning a story about what happened. And inside my head, like I know they're lying, but inside my head, part of my brain still goes, well, I can see that. That kind of makes sense. Man, I feel bad. No, you're lying to me. Stop.
Yep. I mean, it's like I've arrested people who like remember their brother's identifier so well, like there wasn't even a pause.
No, they practiced it. They practiced that in front of the mirror. I guarantee it.
Yeah. It's like, what's your social security number? And they give you their brothers. It's like, how do you remember that? It's amazing that how proficient they are at storytelling. It's crazy.
They're career criminals. That's their job.
Yeah. Yeah. And if people don't understand, those career criminals also, they make their money through violence.
Yes.
But they don't train. They still stay in. You still can't get people to train. So.
Well, on that note, since people should get training, let's tell them how to find you and get some training.
Yeah, it's just you can find me on social media, Hill Country Combatives. That's the easiest way. Just instant message me online. So, but yeah, it's mainly all the training now is by request. I'm not really advertising anything anymore. I have a lot of private clients I'm working with, but I tell people if I can do anything for you, just reach out. We'll set up a time to train. So
I may do that myself because I kind of want to pick your brains about the catch wrestling stuff. I'd love to get together with you and work on some of that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed this episode as much as I did. I always have a great time having a conversation with Cliff. He is a wealth of knowledge in all this stuff. So definitely seek him out and get some training from him. Hope all of you enjoyed it. And please do me a favor. The algorithm forgets me, so click like, subscribe, leave a comment in the comment section telling me how horrible I am, whatever it is. Just help me keep the algorithm going. And I will talk to everybody again next time.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Way is in Training. Please come back again as we explore how training makes us better at our craft and better in our everyday lives. See all of you soon.